A special guest in for his weekly visit during legislative session, 35th District Representative Dan Griffey. Good morning, Dan.
Good morning, you guys.
Morning.
Good to see you here again, and we have been reporting on some long debates yesterday. Let's talk a little bit about this on the low carbon fuel standards. It was passed not fully party lines. I think I heard 5 Democrats voted against this. But
yes.
Talk to us a little bit about this.
Well, I had a lot to say. I don't know if you heard that, but yes, I did have a lot to say on it. So there is a premise out there that there's an ability to ignore physics and ignore what the internal combustion motor does and how it works, and change that around by mixing different additives or different oils, supposedly to give less carbon emissions. However, we know that they get about 20 to 30% less fuel economy per and you have to burn more of the stuff. So we do not see, and I do not see, a direct correlation for less emissions if you have to burn way more of it to actually move the same number of miles. We think there are direct carbon reductions that we could do and implement right now. As a matter of fact, 35th Legislative District, which both of you live in, sequester. I don't know if you do.
Right on the edge.
Yeah, you're on the edge, but you're close. We'll sequester your carbon. But our the tree programs that we have in our large forest landowners, small forest landowners, are actually the solution. We actually know exactly how much, not exactly, but really close how much carbon each tree sequesters in its lifetime and how long it takes for it to grow. So I'm advocating an approach that would reduce the amount of carbon or absorb that carbon that we produce, and actually stimulate the economy.
I've seen, I think it was on the Discovery Channel, they got some show or they had something where these people were going around trying to plant all these trees or something like that, or they have the drones now that can go out and drop the seeds all over the place and really help grow these trees in all sorts of different areas. When it comes to the fuel, is that like the ethanol free? Like when you put
not free, you're putting ethanol in gasoline, so you're putting alcohol in gasoline, which I don't know if you've tried to run a small lawnmower engine, any type of the small engines. Yeah. They gum up quite a lot.
Yeah.
So alcohol absorbs and attracts moisture, and it becomes really problematic. All the small engine manufacturers are just pulling their hair out on how do we make this work, and if you're going to put more alcohol in. Again, my speech last night was more about set the innovators free to solve the problem. Quit giving them a moving target. We all want hyperfuel economy now. The consumers are craving it. Stop changing the rules and let the innovators innovate. We know that in different countries, they choose point carbon encapsulament or trapping or hyperfuel economy. If you're burning way less fuel, it makes really good sense that you're also going to produce less emissions. Or is there a way to encapsulate that and still attain hyperfuel economy? And the innovators haven't found out how to do that yet. So if we're going to be a top-down regulatory dictatorial government on our innovators, we should set them free and say, well, what about hyperfuel economy? We'll let you experiment a little bit over here with some of that point carbon contamination, all of that. Some cars now have 8 catalytic converters, the diesel particulate fuel traps, and which kind of ironically needs to have a bunch of diesel injected in there to burn it all out. Getting the policy right is terribly important, and I really would like to get the policy right on this. And again, not have Washington be one of the 3 outliers when we have kind of a global market selling automobiles.
It's interesting in California, MTBE in the 90s, I remember that well. Environmentalists proposed that additive to cut pollution to the air, and it was getting into the groundwater, contaminating that. People were showering in this junk. And then the environmentalists said they scored a victory when they banned MTBE, and it's reminding me of the whole plastic bag thing, because I feel like there's like collective amnesia out there that when I was growing up, they shoved plastic bags in our face. They said we had to use plastic bags.
Because we were saving the environment.
Right. And then the same people, I'm sorry to sound like I'm kind of a little bitter about this, but nobody ever stops and points this out, that the people that are banning plastic and charging us 8 cents a bag are the ones who shoved it down our throats in the first place.
I agree. And, I understand your frustration. I try not to be frustrated about it. It doesn't do me any good.
Yeah, it doesn't do me any good.
I do get frustrated, though, and I hear your frustration. If we could collectively come together and say, yes, humans do affect the environment. We do litter. We do, there is a large cesspool of plastic in the Pacific Ocean. Let's bond together as a community and say we're going to stop those sort of things. But I grew up with paper. I grew up in a logging community. I grew up in a wood products community. And when we were told spotted owl was, injured, it was being decimated because of the logging industry, we found that to be not correct and not accurate. We were sold plastic bags and plastic containers to say that was going to help the environment, when glass is way more recyclable. I mean, I remember going with my grandfather in the 70s in Washington State. Actually, we had deposits on our glass. I'm not advocating deposits right now, but the deposits were paid back when you would bring the glass bottles back. So it was a carrot stick approach to make sure that we were better stewards of the environment and that we didn't litter.
I wonder if maybe the people aren't as old as I am. They remember like how it was before and how it is now.
Yeah,
you can see the whole full cycle.
I like paper bags. I think paper bags are great, and I think they're even going so far as charge for paper bags. And the Retail Association, which I'm working on a bill for them as well. They're like, don't make us charge anything. We don't want to charge our customers for these things. I think phasing out plastic bags, okay, we can do that, but remember why, exactly what you said, why we went to plastic in the first place. So again, a lot of times government kind of gets in the way, tries to change things too quickly on emotional basis instead of really gutturally thinking about it and coming up with deliberative legislation. I'm running a bill for the Retail Association, however, that attacks something that is a major problem in Washington State, and that's organized retail theft, especially since we legalized liquor in our grocery stores. Right now, a crime is not committed until you load up your 5-gallon or 55-gallon bucket full of expensive items and exit the store. So the crime did not happen until you exit the store. Well, you can have a getaway vehicle right there at the exit and just throw it in there, and you can the loss conservation people in these stores don't even have the ability to go up to them and ask them, are you going to pay for that?
Sure.
I mean, just kind of a simple way to do it. And the problem is it continues to elevate the problems that we're having with people that are suffering from tragic substance abuse and those sort of things. The people that organize these big crime syndicates aren't the ones doing the thieving. No, they find people that really are having problems that we should be helping in society, that has problems with addiction, that has maybe mental health problems. They talk them into doing it. Wow. And so we're double victimizing in this issue, and we're really trying to get that bill to move out. But I couldn't agree with you more. I remember the days when we were told plastic was going to save the environment.
Yeah.
On those long discussion days, how do you set up how are the time frames set up? Because I know we just asked before you started when you got out of there last night, because some of these House floor sessions can go way late into the evening. How are those set up?
So we have cutoff points. I don't have the cutoff points in my head, but the closer you get to the end of session, the speech times get shorter and shorter. Right now we're under the 10-minute rule. Those are rules agreed upon and we vote on at the beginning of session. We're in the 10-minute rule, and if you do the math, 40 times 10, those the number of members we have, we can talk for a long time, and it's our prerogative, and we're expected to give our constituents' views. Do we always talk on something? A lot of the bills that were real, that have been worked out and and we all agree on, there's not a lot of speeches. But when we don't agree and we think there's a significant difference and it's significantly problematic that we go with that policy, then we're going to use our prerogative, the minority's prerogative, and use time.
We have been asking for folks to send questions in, and we got one the other day from a listener. He wanted to know what is happening with a counterpart, Representative Shea, on the other side of the mountains. Matt Shea, if you can explain kind of where the process is. I believe everybody voted on a censure or something like that.
There's been no censure. He has been removed from the House Republican caucus, and the House Republican caucus staff are not, he's not allowed access to House Republican staff. He has voting rights, he has the rights to submit bills, but he does not have any committee assignments either.
Okay.
And that's where it stands.
And he's able to remain in his seat unless something else happens, or we got the vote coming up in November, or?
Well, the vote in November, I think, is how we address it. The voters of Greater Spokane area have the final say whether Representative Shea is still in the caucus at this point. Still in the legislature. He is not a member of the House Republican caucus, and he has no access to House Republican caucus assets for our media operation and our staff members, and he has no committees.
All right. Well, thank you. And we do encourage questions to come into the Daybreak Show at daybreak@ifiber1.com, or you can send it to us on Facebook. Thanks, Dan. Good to see you.
Thank you. Nice seeing you.